Welcome to My Creative Corner 3, a podcast about quilting, crafting, creativity, and life in a northern town. You'll find show notes at mycreativecorner3.wordpress.com. You can leave a comment, you can sign up for my patron site, you can purchase a virtual cup of coffee, or even sign up for the newsletter. Come back weekly and we'll chat. My name is Vicki, and welcome to the podcast. Here we are on the 14th of April, looking out the window, and it's just now becoming sunrise. The 50-mile-an-hour wind gusts of yesterday seem to have slowed down, and yeah, there's snow on the ground. We always get snow in April, but I'm always disappointed every year thinking maybe we'll get through the month without snow. It's not much snow, not like what Marquette got. They got a couple feet of snow, but here in northern Michigan, it's only a couple, dusting of inch or so, and it's supposed to be dusting for the next couple of days. My perennials will survive. They've started to come up. I raked the flower beds out on the weekend when it was sunny, and we didn't get all the leaves raked up though because the ground is so wet. So hopefully over the next few weeks, this will warm up and dry out, and I can start seeing the spring flowers. Yes, my spring flowers haven't even started. The tulips are a couple of inches tall. The plants they'll just stop growing until it warms up. And the fairy gardens are already prepped and ready for a little renovation this year. When we warm up, we're going to have to do a little bit of changing around just because the raised flower beds, a couple of them are in bad shape. In fact, some of them aren't really fairy gardens. Those are kind of nursery beds. We're going to eliminate them and really focus on a couple of raised beds that I have for the fairy gardens and make more room for chairs on the patio to enjoy them. So that'll all happen bit by bit by bit over the summer, and if we need to replace anything, we're going to wait until the social distancing is over and we can go to one of the stores and buy the things that we need. We've got plenty of plants. I don't need that. I've got plenty of fairy garden houses and castles and things like that. It's just a matter of spring. I get antsy and I want to get out there and have the garden all be ready. We could use a little mulch in the back too, but I'm not sure we're going to do that. It's all going to depend on how the economy swings back. My husband has not been working tons of hours. He usually gets overtime where he works, and now we're barely squeaking 30 hours a week, but that's okay. It's only been a few weeks, and we're going to make it all right. And the biggest thing is everyone's doing the right thing and following whatever their recommendations are for their area as far as being self-isolating. And businesses, they're not essential. They're not getting things delivered to them. So that's what my husband does. So when it opens up, it's going to be gangbusters. I just know it. And he'll be working overtime again. And so, actually, when this happens every year, it just has been a little bit longer than usual over the course of the winter and spring. I keep telling him, don't worry about it and take this as a chance to recuperate, to get your body rested up, because it's going to get really busy again. So what have I been doing? Besides looking out the windows and wishing this snow would go away. We were close last week. There was no snow in the yard and just a remnant of snow mountain in the parking lot. But actually, I've been working from home. I probably will till the end of the month. Then after that, we'll see what the recommendations are. So I've been home a lot. And I thought that that would be horrible. And it's turned out it's not. I think this will be fine when I retire. I have a lot of work to do. Even if I wasn't working from home, I have a lot of work in quilting and crafting to do. Got to have a hobby, I think, to survive some of these rough patches in life. And this has been a most interesting time. So I'll be honest, I've been focusing all of my energy on the tough stuff. Yeah, doing crafts that are hard, because it takes all my mental energy to focus on it. And then I don't have time to let my mind wander and think about things that are upsetting or anxiety provoking. And it's not a way of avoiding that, because believe me, I have plenty of time to think about those things throughout the day. But I've been doing the tough stuff. Well, what is the tough stuff, you say? Well, if you remember last podcast, I started a Dear Jane quilt because it's been on my list for probably 15 years or more to do. And I thought, there's no better time than the present. I have a lot of time on my hands, being home on the weekends and after work and before work. And yep, I have been doing the tough stuff. And I'm going to tell you that Dear Jane is living up to its reputation of being a challenge quilt for me. It's been hard. It's had a couple of tiny little appliques, and it has a lot of paper piecing. I'm going to tell you right now, applique is hard for me, but little applique isn't so bad. So I've got 13 blocks into this, and I had to take a break because the next couple of blocks are going to take all of my skills to do, unless I find a way to redraft them in doing them a little bit differently. But I'm using the Susan Gatewood electric quilt Dear Jane patterns that are free. She's also had a couple of other quilts in there, like the Farmer's Wife and things like that. But yeah, the 13 blocks, they were hard work. They're a little fiddly, but I'm really pleased with the results. So it's done its job. I'm using fabric that I've been hoarding since I went to Paducah, which is a William Morris reproduction. William Morris, he made a big movement in the craftsman movement early in the 1900s. So these are reproduction fabrics, but they're in bright colors. And that's what I like about it. I think it's a Barbara Brackman pattern, and she was inspired by that. But I am all about the craftsman movement. I totally love it. And it's just, I don't know, it's got just enough old and enough modern in it that really appeals to me. So this quilt, I'm going to use all of those up as long as I can, and then keep adding fabrics that are inspired by that particular color palette and that particular pattern. So 13 blocks, 13's a charm, right? It's been tough, but I've been learning a lot. And I think, lots of people are learning new things during this time of quarantine or self-isolation. I can't learn new things, but I am expanding upon the things that I have been working on, or skills that I have, and working on challenges that way. The other thing that I have been working on is with the Dear Jane. I have taken a break on all of the sewing. I was doing a lot of masks. I think I've met the need of the masks that I've been working on. So I push pause on that because I found it really hard and depressing and anxiety provoking. And then all I did was think about the coronavirus when I was making the masks. But I think we got masks to all the people that need them, all the departments where I work. I have cloth masks flooded throughout all of the area, and the employees, I think, all have masks, and the people in the foster care homes have masks, and I think we're doing well. So I decided the next project I need to work on is the things that I, in quilting, don't like doing. I have always disliked it, and I continue to dislike binding quilts. I had 4 or 5, and most, when I say that, it sounds like a lot, but a bunch of them were little mini wall hangings or table runners, and 2 are pretty good sized quilts. I am on the 4th one, so there's one more the pineapple quilt, which is pretty good sized. I'm terrible at binding. I don't enjoy it. I don't mind prepping it and making the binding. And I decided, since these are not going to be show quality quilts, I am not doing the bias joins, the bias seams, because it's just plain and simply, I don't understand the 100% on the concept of joining them at 45. I know it reduces bulk in the seams. But with today's sewing machines, I'm just sewing them on the top and then flipping them over and whip stitching them down. I also have learned that I need to use a quilting thread. I can't use a sewing thread, or the bindings just rip apart. So, I have a white quilting thread, and on one quilt it doesn't look fantastic because the binding is black, but it's for me. Who cares? It's not a show quilt. Done is better than perfect. That has been my theme for a while. Done is better than perfect, because the OCD perfect switch can get flipped in times where I feel stressed and working on a Dear Jane, because, oh my gosh, they are so not perfect, as well as working on bindings. I miter the corners, be proud, clap, 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 yay! I mitered the corners. They're not rounded, which has been my cheat in the past. But I'm doing the easy join of the beginning and the end straight on. I'm cutting them straight on grain of fabric, and I'm sewing them straight on. I thought, you know what? Done is better than perfect, and I'm not so sure. I really like the those 45-degree angle joints. That's what that word I was looking for. So, lessons learned from doing the difficult things. That sometimes you just got to do things the way you want to do them, even if it isn't, quote, the right way or the best way. Because, done is better than perfect sometimes. Same with house cleaning. I mean, sometimes done is better than perfect, right? Well, I don't need to take everything off the counter or the shelves and dust them every day. I don't need to have it all perfectly cleaned. I'm telling you, I don't even swabble the doorknobs and all that stuff a lot, because I'm home most of the time. When my husband comes in and out, then I may do that. But done is better than perfect. Same with the bindings. They are relatively straight. The corners are mitered. They look pretty good. Now, tips that I got from my friend that a lot of people don't like is I cut them wider, because when I have a skinnier binding, I tend to get a wobbly look on the outside, because, maybe the quilt's a little wobbly and it just emphasizes it. It's not as full of a binding. But I cut them at 2 3/4, and I can deal with it. My fingers don't hurt so much by wrestling the binding, and I can use a wonder clip, as I only use one, and clip it down as I go, and it holds. So bindings, yeah, you just also sometimes just got to jump in with both feet and just do it. Oh, I don't like doing them. And I've been chopping it up into little steps. Did you get what I did there? Yeah, I cut the strips out one day. I sewed them together and pressed it another day. And then the next day I sewed them. And in the case of the last quilt, it took 2 or 3 different sewing sessions to finish it, 10 or 15 minutes. I get tired of it, get frustrated with it. I had to join it when I wasn't tired. And then the next day, last night, I got the last side sewn. I went through and checked all the corners, make sure all the edges were caught. Of course, it never fails, right? When you're binding a quilt, where does the last stitch usually end? At a join, right? So I ripped it up a little bit higher on the side that I sewed it, because I left a generous tail at the beginning. I learned that. Cut it way longer than you think and have generous tails, so that I could cut it so I wasn't trying to join at a seam or near the seam. So that was a lesson. But doing the difficult things, it's been all right to do that kind of stuff for me. Some people like to do things that are more easy and during difficult times, and that's okay too. But for me, to keep myself occupied, to keep my brain engaged and moving forward, the Dear Jane has been the thing because it's been rough. It's taken a lot of research and asking questions. The binding has been perfect because the sewing is on a finishing stage of the things I've been putting off. And I'm almost done with that. So then it leads me to what am I going to do while in between the Dear Janes while I'm still in self quarantine? Are you kidding, girl? I got so many things to do. I do. I have so many things. How can you not have so many things when you are a lifelong creative person? I've got Cricut stuff. I've got quilts. I've got a kinship quilt from last year that I started and I only did some of the blocks. I think she's going to redo the quilt along this summer, but I could get working on that too. I have a t-shirt quilt for graduation that I have been working on. Yeah, I've got a lot. I've got a couple of quilts in the to quilt category, and I found some batting so I can get working on that. I could go on and on and on. Oh, I'm still knitting that cowl. I'm getting to about the 3/4 mark. Remember, it's just a seed stitch cowl that I bought with the Alda yarn. It's cranberry. I'm going to make it long enough to be a cowl with a twist in it. I have a couple cute little buttons and screw-on buttons that'll look nice with it. I've got my hand stitch hexagons that I'm joining together. See, the list goes out. Oh, plus I have hexagons cut out from the bee swap last summer that they're all prepped and ready to go. So who can run out of things to do? Plus, there's so many free things out there, free classes, free offerings from all of my favorite people. I think Blueprint still has some free classes going on. There's people who have got tons and tons of great ideas. In fact, there's so much out there that it would be more than I could do in a year. But I don't have the energy to do it, even though I have the time. And that's been very frustrating to me since we've been home on the self-isolation. I'm like, why don't I have the energy to do it? Why? This should be a time of high productivity and a high time of getting high energy and high organizations and all of the projects. And what I've been doing, you want to know what I've been doing? I have been basically watching a lot of shows on YouTube in between sewing sessions. I can only sew for 15-20 minutes and then my hip is tired, my fingers and neck get tired, and I take a break and come back. We discovered that all of the BBC's show called Time Team is on YouTube. And some is in really good definition. Some are a little older and grainy. The show started in the late 90s. I believe it was on for at least 20 seasons, and it still may be on for all I know. I absolutely adore that show. It was like finding an old friend. I love Time Team. It's about archaeology, and the presenter is Tony, and he was in the Blackadder. So he's a British actor. So do you remember the Blackadder? I never watched it in the 70s and 80s. That was Rowan Atkinson, probably one of his early works. But my husband was a huge fan, so I've watched the Blackadder, when streaming services became available. It is pretty funny, and you have to have a certain type of humor to really get it. It's kind of in the whole Monty Python type of humor. So it's awesome. But Tony is great because he's the presenter on the show, and they have, it's a team of archaeologists, and they call it geophysicists, the people who do the ground studies using some sort of technology. Even I can't tell you. The newer things are LIDAR. I know that from the new archaeology shows. I love archaeology. I love history. I always wanted to do archaeology. In fact, if I had to do whatever my dream was back when my 18-year-old self, without any restrictions of money or potential of a job, I wanted to either become a doctor, which, I'm glad I didn't do that in today's realm because I would be exhausted and I wouldn't be a good doctor. The other thing is, I had a dream of being a professional musician. Well, I'm glad I didn't do that because I got arthritis and my hands went to crap, so I couldn't play a stringed instrument. So, that's good. But the third thing that I always wanted to do, which I may wind up in retirement doing as volunteering at some of the archaeological digs around Michigan, is be an archaeologist. As kids, you're like, oh yeah, I love stones and rocks and history and digging things up. So I love this show. I'm embarrassed to say I have probably watched at least 15 to 20 episodes over the last week. And over the weekend when the weather wasn't good and it was Easter weekend and we grilled steaks and watched Time Team. I love it. They dig in people's backyards and fields. They find Roman things. Sometimes they find nothing. Sometimes they find great finds. And I think it's just wonderful. I'm very attached to the actors and the presenters and the archaeologists in the show, and we looked them up, and some of them have passed since, so that made me sad. But at the same time, it's a lifetime of work and a very fun, and they say they have 3 days, and they do 3 days worth of archaeology, and then if it's something big, then the British history will come, or the townspeople themselves have archaeologists. Isn't that cool? And they will work on preservation. So it's all about the things we love. And it's the one thing my husband and I can watch together that we both thoroughly enjoy, because I get tired of, 5-10 minute video clips after a while. It's too much stimulation. And the other thing is, he likes watching shows about car repair, which there's a couple I do like. He wants to build his home gym after the gym's being closed. He's been thinking about that for a while, so he's watching a lot of those videos. He doesn't want to watch quilting videos or things like that, but we love Time Team. So that's what we've been doing, binging on Time Team. And it's okay. I do handwork with it because sometimes your brain just needs a little bit of a break, especially during self-isolation times and pandemics and stress and all of the things. We're still recuperating from, grief over losing his mother, and he's still doing the business that it just takes a long time to do final business and the paperwork, and that's been really hard on him. We're still trying to organize, the stuff we wanted to keep that she had that were in the family a while. We're also going through the garage because that's where we put all the things that need to be disposed of or whatever. And so that's been slowly getting whittled down. It's going to be a process. And just like in making a very complicated quilt, it is not a linear event, right? It takes a while. You pick it up, you put it down. You go through the hard things, you put it away. You jump in, you do things. That's what doing all the hard things this month has taught me, is that it's okay to give yourself permission to just take it in little tiny snippets of time, little steps, and then eventually you're binding the quilt, right? Eventually. And you have to be in the I have to be in the mental space to do it. If I try to force myself on working on a binding when I'm not in the mental space for it, it's a disaster. Same with the Dear Jane. And sometimes you reach the saturation point and you got to put it up, right? Like the masks. I just had to put them up. So those are the things I've learned in doing these difficult things over the last month and being kinder to myself. I've been, feeling like I've been very kind and helpful and supportive and going the extra mile for work and doing all that for other people. So I'm going the extra mile for myself and just binging on Time Team for a while. It's all right. It's not forever. It's just a space in time, a blip on the radar, and the next thing you know, we'll be back to doing life. May not be the same as what it was before all this, but we'll be back to doing life. And I will be out of the house more often than once a week to walk around the block when it's not a gale force wind and sleet balls being thrown in my face. So anyway, that's what I've been up to and the things that I've been learning. And I'm finding that I am okay being at home. I'm pretty busy. work is harder from home. I don't think that will be forever, but there are a lot of parts of my job that I think people are finally realizing can be done from home or remotely or wherever. There's good and bad with that. Just like anything else, there's pluses and minuses. I certainly love doing meetings on Zoom because we can't put video on because it uses up all the broadband. So I can, color in my coloring books, which I think I'm going to take my coloring books and my crayons back to the office when we get back there so I can do that at work. Meetings, I just don't do well with them sometimes. And, just things will restart. Life will restart back to where it was, probably sooner than later. What's super funny is that people are getting impatient with the stay at home, is what we call it in Michigan, stay home, stay safe. It's a shelter in place kind of thing. And you know what? We'll be back at it, and things will be summer before you know it. Most of the festivals already that we usually go to have been canceled, and I'm all right with that. I feel like this is a time to reset traditions for me, reset the summer, make it simpler, and achieving the things that I want to do, which is a simpler, less complicated, more enjoyable life. So I'm keeping it simple. So lessons learned in the difficult things have helped me get through the difficult times, and I am perfectly okay with binding my quilts straight of grain, straight seams, the easy join, and they're done, because done is better than perfect. So I hope you guys are having the last couple of weeks that you've been able to get through whatever your circumstances are without any distress and problems. I hope that you are well. I really know that a lot of people in my life have been affected by being sick, or loved ones, people in our community. We've lost a few. Several are in the hospital. So my thoughts and prayers go out to everybody who has been sick and are in the hospitals. It's a big deal for our small town. And I am asking that you continue to do the things that make you happy. And sometimes, if it's the simple things that you need to do, that's okay. If you want to binge Time Team with me, I'll be binging it till I watch all of them, and then I may start over again because I love this show so much. And work on some things maybe that are a little bit harder and challenging, because it might take your mind off all of this. Be creative, find peace, and quilt on, everyone.